Welcome to the Empowered Dancers podcast, where we talk openly about all things empowerment in the salsa, bachata and kizomba scene. Join me as I talk about the highs and lows of Latin dancing, as well as interviewing some incredible people on their stories, experiences and points of view, both in the dance scene and beyond. Go to empowereddancers.com/5 ways for 5 tips to boost your confidence on the social dance floor. I'm Bobby Miles, that's Bobby with an IE and Miles as in distance. Joining me today, we have Lisa Johnson. Lisa is not a dancer, but stay with me on this. She is a global business strategist and Sunday Times bestselling author. After overcoming a difficult childhood in social housing, this has led Lisa to be the supportive yet bold and straightforward talking strategist that she is today. She took herself from £30,000 in debt to becoming a successful multi-six-figure entrepreneur in just 5 years. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello.
Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. We need to update your figures.
I think we do. Yes, actually. I think I'm a bit out of date now, which is fantastic to hear. Congrats on your recent launches.
Thank you.
Lisa, could you give us a bit of a background on what brought you into what you're doing today as a business strategist?
Yeah, basically, I kind of worked my way up. I lived in poverty when I was younger, and so left school when I was 16, so didn't really get any qualifications, and then kind of worked my way up from an office junior into what I ended up doing, which was working in the city, actually, in investment banking. But I'm sure that you will be aware that investment banking was then a very old boys game. So it was all the same kinds of people working there. You had to be in there for 7 o'clock in the morning. You didn't leave until 10 o'clock at night. And if you did, there was something wrong with you. And that was all very fine until I had twins. And then when I had the twins in my mid-30s, I no longer could do that. I had to kind of come in normal hours. And that was definitely frowned upon. It just felt like I didn't really fit in there anymore. Also, the money I was getting paid barely covered childcare. And I was never seeing the kids. And so I ended up getting a part-time job near where I lived instead. And so I eventually started a wedding planning business first off. And that was my learning ground for being a strategist. It's where I learned so much of what I do now. It wasn't very successful at the beginning. And then I managed to turn the business around. And then I just organically, I guess, people started asking me, mainly women who had been in really good jobs, but were kind of pushed out or bullied out when they had kids, so it didn't work anymore for them when they had kids, were asking me, well, how can I do this? How can I have my own business? And so I started to teach them how they could. And so I ended up actually giving away my wedding planning business while it was at the height of its existence, and started what I do now 7 years ago.
Fantastic. And if I can, Lisa, take you back 7 years to when you first started, and you first started networking at events. So for my dancers out there, Lisa is very much what we would equate to an international dancer, and the international dance teacher, I apologize. And the kind of events where Lisa and I met as well for the first time, they're events where you have the whole range just like at a festival. They're often 2 days long. You have newbies who are just trying to figure things out. You have the friendly ones who are welcoming with open arms, the cool kids that you may want to avoid to start with, those who think you should know who they are already, and everything in between. You make amazing connections. You have experiences. So if we were to put you back 7 years, Lisa, to when you started attending these kinds of events, could you tell us how it was coming in as a woman and as a new business owner?
Yeah, it was terrifying, if I'm honest. I was never very good at networking anyway. I'm still not that good at it. I feel I got bullied a lot when I was younger. And because of that, when I'm in a room full of women, because it was girls that bullied me, when I'm in a room of women, I can often feel a bit like wary. So if there are groups of women or cliques of women, I feel wary. I've been bullied online since then, and so it doesn't help. It does make me kind of a bit wary of going into a situation. But like you said, there are always the friendly ones that look out for people who are a bit scared of that kind of thing. And I found those people and felt more secure. It's got easier as I've gone on because I think my confidence has grown with how much the business has grown. But now there's a different kind of sort of fear, because whereas before then it was like, no one knows who I am. And, how am I going to speak to anyone? Now everyone knows who I am. And that's just as scary. So you walk into a room and immediately people will come up to you and say, hi. And because I speak to so many people online, I think people forget that I don't see their faces.
Yeah.
I see mine. And so I don't know who they are a lot of the time. And they're like, oh, like when we were talking like on last year, and I'm like, and I don't know who they are. And so that's just as scary.
That does sound scary. And I think a lot of our teachers, whether they're national, local, international, they will all relate to that as well. Having that feeling of people not knowing them and them kind of going, I'd like to know you, but I don't know you.
Yeah. And I now try and memorize surnames, because then I know what people do. So if someone says to me, oh, I'm Rachel, I'm like, okay, what's your surname? And they'll go, oh, I'm Rachel Smith. And I'll go, oh, you're the one that does the thing. Like I remember it then, like who people are, because there's so many. I teach 5,000 people a year.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
It's very full on, yes.
Yeah.
And so what did you find when you were in your early days at these networking events? Didn't feel quite like you'd found your place yet. What helped you set your boundaries and build your confidence?
I still don't think I've found my place yet. I think that that's something that takes a lot of time. And I think that if you're somebody, I'm a bit of a lone wolf in this industry, and I don't mind that. I'm somebody that likes to do things my own way. I don't really follow trends or any of those kind of things. I'm not very good with cliques of people. I try and stay out of that kind of arena, probably because of my childhood. And so I like to move around a bit. And so when I'm in a room now, when I'm networking, I like to go and see all the different people that I do know. And kind of the confidence with me comes from knowing lots of different people dotted around, and to be able to go and speak to one and say hi, and then go and say hi to another and catch up with them. And that's how I've found my place. And I think sometimes we feel, especially networking in any arena, whether it's dancing or business or anything, that we have to stick with the people that we know. And I think that's a real shame, because when we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, we grow. And putting yourself into an uncomfortable situation, going to talk to somebody that you don't know that well, that maybe you've just heard of or seen through a friend of somebody else, go talk to them. Yeah. Because that will help you grow, and it will also help your confidence to be able to do that more.
Yeah, pushing yourself out of that comfort zone is a big one. I agree with as well.
Yeah.
In dancing, we have the added dynamic that you will dance with strangers. It's quite common, and you will have your friend group and you may venture out of it. But oftentimes, and unfortunately it is oftentimes, you dance with someone and they cross a boundary for you and make you feel uncomfortable, not in the pushing your comfort zone kind of way.
No.
They've made you feel ick, and it's very difficult to figure out in that exact moment how you're going to deal with it. Are you going to remove yourself? Are you going to communicate? Or perhaps you go into freeze where you're just going to get through the dance to keep yourself safe, because that's what you need to do to get through it.
I think that happens in business too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, I don't really like it when people gossip about other people. And when you're at a table in a networking, it's a group of women. It's very difficult for people not to talk about the experiences they've had with other people necessarily. But if I sit down, what I used to do, so people would be like maybe slating somebody that I knew, I would just sit there and get through it. Like I didn't want to put my head above the parapet. I'd just sit and go, oh, like, don't just ignore it. Don't get involved.
Because it's difficult.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the one that they turn on instead.
Yeah, very much so.
That's what a bystander is, though. Someone that allows things to happen, and I won't be a bystander anymore. So what I do now when someone breaks that boundary is I'm very confident in being able to say, oh, I'm just going to go for a walk, or, this doesn't feel really comfortable to me when you're talking about other people without them being here. So I'm just going to, go and sit over there for a while, like not judging them, just not wanting to be part of it and making it very clear that I'm not going to be part of it. I'm very good at holding someone's name in good regard. So if somebody's talking about somebody I've had a good experience with and I know well, and they're saying bad things, I'll say, that's not my experience at all. And I will make sure I do talk about that. I think with boundaries, it's hard to have them at the beginning when you're new in something, but you are respected for having them. Yeah. And so I think it's okay to just say no and to remember that no is a complete sentence.
100% yes, it is. And you don't have to add anything to it. That no is valid all on its own.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a because. There doesn't have to be an explanation. Just no.
Completely. You mentioned bystanders. That is something that our Safer Dance Spaces initiative group, they advocate for people becoming more aware. And when they see things that aren't right or hear things that aren't right, that they find a way to take that step to go, no, this is not okay. Or I don't appreciate what you're saying or what you're doing.
I think it's really important because anyone that's in a situation who then finds out that other people kind of were aware of a situation and didn't step in to help, it feels 100 times worse. I can say that from someone that's been bullied. It's much worse. You know that a bully is going to bully. Like, that is who they are. A bystander allowing it to happen is far worse for your mental health to know that that happened than anything else. So, I am an advocate. I work with bullies out. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is, educating the bystander as well. So I'm really glad that you are educating bystanders to get involved and to not allow things to become acceptable.
Yeah, this is it, because we have plenty of people who think, well, I'm a good person. I don't do that kind of thing. So that makes me good. And that's the end of the discussion or the thought process. But it's happening all around you. Misconduct, sexual abuse, inappropriate behavior, it's happening, whether you're willing to see it or not. So that doesn't work for me anymore. I'm a good person. I don't do that. I think, well, what do you do then?
Yeah, because a good person steps in.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, and it's a very black and white stance to take, but I'm fully on it now that it's happening everywhere. So we all have a responsibility, a duty of care to each other to step in.
Yeah, we do. Because if we don't, what happens when it's you? If then do you still think those people are good people?
Yeah, you do. I've recently been a source of gossip around the dance scene, unfortunately, and it took someone reaching out to me and saying, hey, just so you know, this is going around, for me to be aware of it. And I think how many others that will come and say hi and be chatty at an event will come and say hi, but they'll also enjoy having that bit of gossip on the side, and that's fun for them rather than...
It's fun for them now until it's them. Like, there's never a circle of people where if one person gets up and everybody's gossiping about them, you know that if you get up, you're next. Like, no one wants to be in that situation. So we all have to look out for each other.
Yeah.
And then just not allow it to happen.
Yeah, definitely. We do need to look out for each other. It doesn't matter what sector or hobby or world you're in, whether it's business, it's dance, it's crafting, it's cooking. There's that duty of care transcends to all of it.
It really does. And boundaries also mean that you don't have to be in spaces you don't want to be in if you know those things are happening.
Yes. That is a hugely important one in the salsa, bachata, and kizomba scene. Hugely. I have found that there are events now that I don't go to. And it's difficult knowing how to decide how to communicate that with organizers. I'm still trying to figure it out. But it's you have to vote with your heart and really choose where you're going to spend your money.
Honesty is really important, I think, when talking to the organisers. I was supposed to be going to an event in June and everyone's going, like all of my friends are going. But I've decided not to go because I know that there are known bullies and known people that troll others online there. And I used to just go to things and kind of suck it up. And be like, well, I'm going to go. I'm not going to lose face. They're not going to push me out, kind of thing. But then I realized recently that things just continue if that happens. So I've decided to make a stand and not go to any events that I know known bullies or trolls are going to be at. So I'm just not going to go. And I spoke to the organizer of one of these events that I was also supposed to be sponsoring an event a few months ago and decided not to go for the same reason. And a few other people had dropped out. And I was the one that went and said, this is why. And I think you should know, because then it's on them to do something about it. It shouldn't be on me. And people often say things like, yeah, but they're not going to care about one person going. It's never one person. It's never one. It might be one that tells the truth about why they're not going, but there will be so many other people not going because of the negativity in a particular room.
Yes.
That just quietly quit. They just don't tell people why they're not going.
Yeah.
And so it's
or
really,
they go despite it.
Yeah. Well, they go despite it and feel unsafe. No one wants to be feeling unsafe in a room. But they'll do it because they want to see their friends and they want to do the thing that they love. But it shouldn't be that way. Like, it should be that we change things. And the way we change things is to decide we will not put ourselves in spaces where those things happen. Because if enough people do that, those event managers will have to change things.
Yeah. A lot of the organizers in the dance scene end up being men. Maybe it takes more voices for them to hear the worries and the concerns, because it's difficult to relate to the opposite sex and this kind of thing, especially when it's things about uncomfort, boundaries being crossed, consent being ignored.
Yeah, they don't have to relate. They need to listen.
Thank you very much.
They don't need to be able to relate to it. All they need to do is take on board that something's happening and it's in their power to stop it.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that push for that to happen, you've got to remember the people who are people organizing these dance events, they're getting paid at the end of the day. If they want to continue getting paid and have people show up in their rooms, they have to deal with any issues that make the place feel unsafe. And it's education that makes that happen, like education that you're bringing, education that others are bringing. This needs to happen. And it's the only way forward, because otherwise things change and people they start not attending things. And that's when it hits the pocket.
Yeah.
And that's when they listen, but it's too late by then.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it makes me upset and worried for the newcomers coming in, because when you're new into something, you don't know how it works until you see how it works around you. So if you come into a lesson space or a party space and you see what's allowed, the first thing we typically do, especially as women, is we question ourselves.
We second guess immediately, like, oh, maybe this is normal.
Yeah. Am I being prudy that I don't like this type of dance move? Am I just too sensitive? Rather than going, I feel this way. It's valid. Now I need to work out why I feel this way, rather than undermining that feeling.
Yeah, and it's okay to have those feelings. Yeah. I think that if you speak to, I don't even know what the percentages are anymore, but having spoken to many women, there is definitely a high percentage of people that have had some kind of sexual, I wouldn't go as far as assault, but some kind of experience that made them feel uncomfortable. I definitely did. And so many of them say, well, I just thought it must be me and that it must be normal. It's okay to just go, I don't like this.
Yeah.
This isn't right for me, whatever it is. And if more people did that, it would stop things in their tracks.
Yeah. And this is why we need to empower people and have these conversations and encourage everyone, men, women, everyone in between, to have these conversations, because it's difficult to speak up and to talk about something that made you feel small, humiliated, uncomfortable, to then go and tell an organizer or someone you may not know about it is really challenging. So we have to remove as many barriers to that as possible. Well, yeah, you also have to trust that the organizer is a safe person.
That's true. And you never really know if someone is. But I think at the beginning, you give someone the benefit of the doubt and that they are there as you are their client. And at the end of the day, they listen to their clients, and that's something they need to do. So I think you do go there first and say, this is what's happening. Yeah. I don't feel safe. You're not telling them to do anything. You're not telling them to get rid of the other person. You're just telling them the situation. It's down to them how they deal with it.
We are starting to see some development in the dance scene where there are ambassadors at dance events, which is a whole new thing, to have an ambassador who is there to be someone you can report something to. Now, it's only one person, and festivals have hundreds of people. So these are the start. I'm convinced it's the start and not the we found an answer thing. But it's fantastic seeing these movements coming. There's another Kizomba festival, I believe it's in Amsterdam, and they're having these series of talks before their event, like in the run up to, in the weeks before. And having uncomfortable conversations to bring awareness and show that they're an event that care about this kind of thing. And I really hope that those kind of events get championed for the good work they're doing, because it's so needed and it's so overdue.
And I think they will get championed and more people will feel safe in those rooms. And if other organisers see that, they're going to start doing the same, which is what we need. Even having one ambassador there, it's better than zero, right? It means people will know there's someone there that people can report them to.
Yes.
And even that can make things different.
Yeah.
Do you believe that there are people that go to these places, go to places where they can dance with bad intentions?
I think there are a very small number. You do get some people who learn to dance or engage first in the scene because they can be physically close to the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So this will happen a lot more in bachata and kizomba. I know a lot more about bachata. I'm still learning in my kizomba area, but people I've spoken to who are avid kizomba dancers also say that this is a thing that's becoming more of a problem, that it's being sexualized, because we have a style within these dances that is sensual.
Yeah.
But sensual and sexual are getting blurred. Even in how they're being taught, it's being blurred. And this, if someone sees that from the outside, they're going to go, oh, I don't mind getting involved in that.
Yeah.
And
that's where the problem starts.
Yeah. Yeah. So a small number, but it happens.
Yeah. And it's just making sure that those people are known about, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's difficult, but it's got to be done.
Yeah, well, you're the driving force here. By just education is where it starts with.
Yeah, 100% education. And there's more and more out there in the dance scene. People just need to want to get involved to start to bring that cultural shift about.
Yeah.
Lisa, it's been lovely having you. Thank you very much for bringing your voice to a part of the world, the dancing world, that isn't your regular world. And it's valuable to have experiences outside of dancing so that we know these problems don't exist just in dancing. They don't exist just men doing them. It's everywhere and it's everything. And anyone has the potential to make someone else feel uncomfortable. And it's what we do about it as individuals that can start to bring that change. So thank you so much for bringing your experience and your honesty to this today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered Dancers podcast. If there's an aspect of the dancing you would like to hear about, or a particular teacher you would like to hear from, drop me a message and I will try to make it happen. Make sure you subscribe to get every episode as it comes out. Thank you so much for the comments and questions you are already sharing. I really, really appreciate it, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.